The sound of shattering crystal wasn't nearly as loud as the suffocating silence that followed. But the look of absolute terror on the manager's face when she realized the man standing in the doorway wasn't just a customer, but my husband, was worth every second of the pain. The craving had started as a whisper in the back of my mind around noon. A tiny, insistent thought, lobster mac and cheese. Not the box kind. Not the kind from that gastropub 3 blocks over. The specific, obscenely buttery, truffle oil-drizzled dish served at Chez Lumiere, the most pretentious and exclusive restaurant in the downtown core. By 2 p.m., the whisper had become a screaming demand. I rubbed my swollen belly, trying to soothe the tiny, energetic little gremlin currently using my ribs as a jungle gym. All right, I hear you," I murmured, wincing as a particularly sharp kick caught my bladder. "We'll get the mac and cheese. But Daddy is going to have an absolute meltdown if he finds out we went out without security." My husband, Alexander Alex Blackwood Wolf, wasn't just an alpha. He was the alpha. The CEO of Wolf Industries, a man whose name made senators stutter and competitors liquidate their assets just to escape his shadow. To the world, he was a ruthless predator in a $5,000 suit. To me, he was just Alex, the man who massaged my swollen ankles every night and read graphic novels to my belly, his deep, resonant voice vibrating against my skin. We'd kept our marriage a secret for 2 years, not because we were ashamed, but because Alex was pathologically terrified. The media was a pack of rabid wolves, and I was just Caleb, a 23-year-old former art history major from the quiet, rainy side of Washington State. An Omega with no powerful family name, no trust fund, and a scholarship that had run out the semester I'd met Alex. If the world knew I was carrying the wolf Heir, the target on my back wouldn't just be a target. It would be a billboard. Just a quick trip, I convinced myself, pulling on an oversized charcoal gray hoodie that hid the sharp definition of my bump but couldn't disguise the obvious heavy curve. I paired it with worn-in leggings and scuffed sneakers. I knew I didn't look like the typical clientele of Chez Lumiere. I didn't have diamonds dripping from my ears or a watch that cost more than a studio apartment. I looked like a tired, pregnant art student who just pulled an all-nighter, which, to be fair, was exactly what I'd been before Alex had swept me off my feet and into a penthouse overlooking the city. I checked my phone. Alex was in a merger meeting until 6 p.m. I had plenty of time to sneak out, eat, and be back in our nest before he even loosened his tie. I called a rideshare, avoiding the personal driver Alex had insisted on, because I knew that man would report my location to Alex before I even buckled my seatbelt. When the car dropped me off in front of the restaurant, a familiar wave of anxiety crashed over me. The building was intimidating. All black granite, smoked glass, and a velvet rope guarded by a hostess who looked like she just stepped off a runway. A valet was parking a McLaren nearby. I took a deep breath, clutching my phone tight, and pressed a hand to my stomach. "You are Alexander Blackwood Wolf's husband," I told myself. "You own half this city by marriage. You just want some cheesy pasta with lobster in it. Go." I walked up to the entrance. The hostess, a young beta woman with a kind but professionally distant smile, looked up from her podium. "Welcome to Chez Lumiere. Do you have a reservation?" she asked politely. "No, actually," I admitted, giving her a sheepish smile. "I was hoping you might have a table for one. It's a bit of a pregnancy emergency." I patted my stomach lightly. She chuckled softly. "Let me check. We're quite booked, but since it's a quick rush, we might be able to. Is there a problem here, Chloe?" The voice was sharp, icy, and grated on my nerves instantly. I looked up to see a woman approaching. She was tall, wearing a severe, pitch-black suit that looked tailored to within an inch of its life. Her platinum blonde hair was pulled back so tight it looked painful, and her eyes, cold, calculating, the eyes of an alpha who believed status was oxygen, swept over me with immediate, undisguised disdain. I recognized her type. Not personally, but I knew the scent of it. She reeked of burnt amber and crushed velvet, an aggressive, territorial perfume designed to announce, "I am better than you." "No problem, Ms. Vance," Chloe said quickly, her posture stiffening. This gentleman was just asking for a table. I was checking the— We are fully booked, Ms. Vance interrupted, not even looking at Chloe. Her gaze was fixed on my sneakers. She curled her lip as if she'd smelled something rotting. Completely full. For the next 4 months. Oh, I said, my heart sinking. The baby kicked again hard. Disappointed. I understand. Is there any way I could order takeout? I really just need the lobster mac and cheese. Ms. Vance laughed. It wasn't a happy sound. It was a bark of incredulity. Takeout. This is a Michelin-starred establishment, not a food truck. We do not do takeout. She took a step closer, invading my personal space. Her pheromones hit me like a slap, burnt sugar and something chemically sharp like nail polish remover. It was an aggressive scent, designed to intimidate, to make an omega submit. My own scent, honeyed milk and warm vanilla, thick with pregnancy, sour with anxiety in response. And frankly, she continued, gesturing vaguely at my clothes. We have a dress code. Sweatpants and whatever those are strictly prohibited. I felt my face heat up. These are designer. I mumbled, though I knew it didn't matter. Look, I'm willing to pay extra. I'm just really hungry, and I don't care if you're starving, she snapped, her voice raising enough that people in the lobby started to turn and look. We don't serve your kind here. I blinked, confused. My kind. Omegas who think they can waltz into high society establishments looking like beggars, hoping to snag a wealthy alpha. She sneered. I know your game. You get pregnant by some lowlife, then you come to places like this to trap a rich man into paying for your mistake. It's pathetic. The accusation was so wild, so far from the truth, that I almost laughed. Excuse me? I'm married, probably flipping burgers somewhere, wondering where his wallet went. She cut me off. Leave. No. Before I call security to drag you out. My protective instincts flared. I placed a hand over my belly, stepping back. There's no need for that. I'm leaving. I turned to go, humiliation burning my cheeks. I just wanted to get out of there. I wanted to go home, curl up in Alex's scent-soaked nest, and forget this had ever happened. But as I turned, my clumsy, pregnant body betrayed me. My foot caught on the edge of the thick welcome mat. I stumbled. It wasn't a bad fall. I caught myself on a nearby waiter's tray station. But in the process, my elbow knocked over a pitcher of ice water resting there. Splash. The freezing water didn't hit the floor. It hit Ms. Vance. It soaked the front of her pristine, probably $10,000 black suit. The entire lobby went silent. Diners near the entrance stopped chewing. The soft jazz music seemed to stutter. Vance looked down at her wet blouse, then up at me. Her face turned a violent, mottled shade of red. You clumsy, useless little rat, she shrieked. I'm so sorry. I gasped, reaching for a napkin. I tripped. I didn't mean to. She slapped my hand away. Hard. Don't touch me. You did that on purpose. I didn't. It was an accident. Security, she screamed. Get this trash out of my restaurant and make him pay for the cleaning bill. This suit cost more than his entire life. 2 large, alpha-shaped security guards appeared from the shadows. These men weren't the professional, highly trained security Alex employed. These men looked like bouncers, rough, thick-necked, and eager for a fight. One of them grabbed my arm. His grip was tight, bruising. Hey, let go. I cried out, panic rising in my chest. You're hurting me. You heard the lady, the guard grunted, dragging me toward the door. Wait, please. I struggled, trying to keep my footing so I wouldn't fall on my stomach. I'm pregnant. Be careful. You should have thought about that before you assaulted the manager, the other guard sneered. They dragged me out onto the sidewalk. It had started to rain, a miserable, cold drizzle that matched my mood. The guard shoved me, and I stumbled, falling onto my hands and knees on the wet pavement. My palms scraped against the concrete, stinging sharply. And stay out, the guard barked, dusting his hands off before retreating back inside. I knelt there for a moment, stunned. The cold rain soaked through my hoodie immediately. My knees were throbbing, my hands were bleeding slightly, and I was crying. Not from the pain, but from the sheer, crushing humiliation. I was Alexander Blackwood Wolf's husband. I had access to a joint account with more zeros than I could count. And I had just been thrown out of a restaurant like a stray dog. I struggled to stand up, wiping the rain and tears from my face. I needed to call Alex. No, I couldn't call him. He would burn this city to the ground. I needed to just go home. But as I reached for my phone in my pocket, I realized it was gone. It must have fallen out when they dragged me, or when I fell. I looked back at the glass doors. There it was, lying on the carpet inside, right near the hostess stand. I couldn't leave it. It had pictures of the baby scans. It had Alex's private number. It had our entire life on it. I took a shaky breath, smoothed down my wet hoodie, and walked back to the door. I pushed it open. I said stay out. Ms. Vance was there instantly, as if she'd been waiting for me to try again. She blocked my path, arms crossed. My phone, I said, my voice trembling. It's on the floor. Please, just let me get my phone, and I'll leave. She looked down at the phone, then back at me. A cruel smile twisted her lips. She stepped on it. I heard the crunch of the screen cracking under her heel. Oops, she said, her eyes gleaming with malice. Looks like you shouldn't have dropped it. Why are you doing this? I whispered, feeling sick. Because people like you need to learn their place, she hissed, leaning in close. Her pheromones spiked again, acrid and sharp, making my eyes water. You think because you're pretty and pregnant, the world owes you something. You're nothing. You're dirt. Now get out before I have the boys throw you into the street for real this time. I stared at her, paralyzed by her cruelty. The diners were watching. Some were filming with their phones, snickering, whispering. Look at him, I heard a woman at a nearby table say. So trashy. Probably doesn't even know who the father is. Disgusting, her companion agreed. I felt small, tiny, insignificant. I wished the ground would open up and swallow me whole. I turned around, defeated, ready to walk into the rain and walk the 5 miles home if I had to. But the revolving doors at the entrance suddenly stopped moving. A black, sleek limousine had pulled up to the curb, right in the no parking zone. The driver's door opened, and a uniformed chauffeur stepped out, opening an umbrella. But he didn't open the back door. The back door flew open from the inside. With force, a man stepped out. He was tall, over 6'4", with shoulders so broad they strained the fabric of his charcoal gray suit. His hair was dark, slicked back but slightly windswept. He didn't look at the valet who rushed to offer him a ticket. He didn't look at the rain. He looked straight at me. Even through the glass, even from 20 feet away, the force of his aura hit me like a physical blow. It wasn't the aggressive chemical scent of Ms. Vance. It was the scent of a storm, ozone, cedarwood, smoke, and sheer, terrifying power. It was Alex. And he looked murderous. He must have tracked my phone. He must have seen that I was stationary here for too long. Or maybe he just felt it through the bond, the spike of my distress, sharp and sour, cutting through the city noise like a scream. Ms. Vance, noticing my stare, turned around to see what I was looking at. Her eyes widened. Every single person in that restaurant who knew anything about power or money froze. Forks hovered halfway to mouths. Whispers died instantly. Alexander Blackwood Wolf strode toward the entrance. He didn't walk. He prowled. The security guard who had shoved me stepped in his way, foolishly trying to do his job. Sir, you can't park. Alex didn't even slow down. He simply looked at the man. I couldn't hear what he said through the glass, but I saw the guard's face drain of all color. The man stepped back so fast he nearly tripped over his own feet, bowing his head in submission, baring his throat instinctively to the higher-ranking alpha. Alex pushed through the doors. The air in the lobby instantly became heavy, charged with the pheromones of a furious, dominant alpha in full protective rage. It smelled like a forest fire, smoke, burning pine, and something darker, more primal. He didn't look at the staff. He walked straight to me. His eyes scanned me instantly, taking in my wet hair, the dirt on my knees, the scrapes on my hands, the tears on my cheeks. His expression, usually so composed, fractured into something raw and terrifying. "Caleb," he breathed. His voice was low, vibrating with suppressed rage. He reached out, his large, warm hands cupping my face, wiping away a raindrop. "Are you hurt? Is the baby okay?" I'm okay," I stammered, leaning into his touch, my legs suddenly weak with relief. I fell. You fell." Alex repeated the word like it was a foreign concept. He looked at my scraped palms. Then he looked at the wet pavement outside. Then he looked at Ms. Vance and the security guards. He slowly turned his head to face Ms. Vance. Ms. Vance was trembling. She wasn't stupid. She knew exactly who Alexander Blackwood Wolf was. Everyone knew. He owned the building this restaurant was in. He owned the bank that held their loans. He probably owned the cows that made the cheese for their overpriced mac and cheese. And Mr. Blackwood Wolf, she stuttered, her previous arrogance evaporating like mist. She tried to smile, but it looked like a death rictus. "What an honor. We didn't know you were coming. We would have prepared the private." Alex ignored her greeting. He didn't release me. He kept one arm firmly wrapped around my waist, pulling me into his side, claiming me, protecting me. His scent flared, dominant, possessive mine. "Why," Alex asked, his voice quiet, deadly quiet, the kind of voice that made you want to hide under a table. "Is my husband wet?" Ms. Vance blinked, confused. She looked around, as if searching for Alex's husband. Then her eyes landed back on me. Her jaw dropped. "Husband, I asked you a question," Alex said, his voice dropping an octave. A growl rumbled in his chest. I could feel it against my ribs. "Why is my pregnant husband standing here, shivering, with bleeding hands, while you stand there dry and comfortable?" The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear dust settle. "I didn't know," Miss Vance whispered, her face pale. He didn't say. He looked." "Looked like what?" Alex challenged, stepping closer to her. The sheer pressure of his presence made her take a stumbling step back. "Looked like someone you could bully? Someone you could abuse because you thought he had no one to defend him?" "Sir, he caused a disturbance," she tried, desperation creeping into her voice. "He spilled water on me. Look at my suit." Alex glanced at the water stain on her suit. Then he looked at me. "Did you spill water on her, Caleb?" "It was an accident," I whispered. "I tripped. When they were kicking me out." "Kicking you out." Alex repeated the words as if tasting them. They tasted like poison. He looked at the phone on the floor, the one Miss Vance had stepped on. He recognized the case. It was a custom one, black leather with a tiny embossed wolf on the corner. He'd had it made for my birthday. He walked over to it. The sound of his expensive Italian leather shoes echoed in the silent lobby. He picked up the smashed device. He looked at Ms. Vance. "You stepped on this." It was an accident," she lied, her voice cracking. Alex didn't answer. He simply dropped the phone back onto the floor. The crunch of glass echoed. "Who touched him?" Alex asked, turning to the room at large. His pheromones flared again, hot, angry, suffocating. "I want to know who put their hands on my husband." "No." The security guard who had shoved me was trying to melt into the wall. Alex's eyes snapped to him. The predator had found its prey. "You," Alex said. It wasn't a question. The guard started to shake. "I was just following orders, Mr. Blackwood Wolf. Ms. Vance told me to remove." "Did she tell you to push a pregnant man onto concrete?" Alex asked, walking slowly toward the guard. "I didn't." "Alex," I said softly, tugging on his sleeve. I could feel his rage spiking, hot, volcanic, barely contained. And while a part of me, the Omega part, was reveling in my mate defending me, I didn't want him to kill someone in the lobby of an overpriced French restaurant. I just want to go home. Please. Alex stopped. He closed his eyes for a second, taking a deep breath, reining in the violence simmering under his skin. He turned back to me, his expression softening instantly. Okay, baby, he murmured, kissing my forehead. We'll go home. He took off his suit jacket, a bespoke piece worth more than most people's cars, and draped it over my shoulders. It was warm, heavy, and smelled like him, cedar, smoke, rain, and something deep in alpha that made my Omega purr. Instantly, my racing heart began to calm. He guided me toward the door. But before we left, he stopped and turned back to Ms. Vance. Enjoy your restaurant, Ms. Vance, Alex said coolly. Mr. Blackwood Wolf, please, let me explain, she begged, stepping forward. There's nothing to explain. Alex pulled out his phone, his own phone, pristine and functional, and dialed a number, holding it to his ear. His eyes never left hers. Edwards? Yes. I'm at Chez Lumiere. In my building. Yes, right now. Cancel their lease. Effective immediately. Ms. Vance gasped. You can't do that. And Edwards, Alex continued, ignoring her, ensure that the manager, a Ms. Vance, is blacklisted from every hospitality establishment in this city. If I see her serving so much as a coffee in this town again, I will hold you personally responsible. He hung up. He looked at Ms. Vance one last time. She was trembling, tears streaming down her face, her career and reputation incinerated in 30 seconds. You should have learned, Alex said coldly, that you never judge a book by its cover, especially when that book belongs to me. With that, he guided me out into the rain, where the chauffeur was waiting with the door held open. I slid into the warm, leather interior of the limo, the scent of safety, leather, Alex's cologne, and the faint, comforting smell of home wrapping around me. Alex climbed in beside me, pulling me into his lap, burying his face in my neck. He inhaled deeply, scenting me, checking me, reassuring himself that I was real, that I was here, that I was his. I'm sorry, he whispered against my skin, his voice thick with emotion. I should have been there. You're here now, I said, stroking his hair as the car pulled away. I looked back through the tinted window. I saw the lights of Chez Lumiere still shining, but I knew it was already over. The darkness had been driven away, not by the sun, but by the fire of an alpha who would burn the world to keep me warm. The silence inside the limousine was hermetic sealed, a stark contrast to the chaotic, rain-slicked pavement we'd left behind. The outside world, the humiliating stairs, the cold rain, the venomous voice of Ms. Vance, felt a million miles away, locked out by bulletproof glass and reinforced steel. But inside, the air was thick, heavy with the scent of distress. My distress, and Alex's barely contained fury. I sat huddled in the corner of the plush leather seat, his massive suit jacket still draped over my shoulders like a weighted blanket. It smelled of cedarwood, smoke, and the deep, rich musk that was uniquely him. Usually, that scent was my anchor, the thing that settled my stomach and slowed my racing heart. But right now, it was spiked with something sharp and metallic. The scent of an alpha who had been pushed to the edge of violence and was still teetering. Alex hadn't let go of me since we got in. One arm was wrapped securely around my waist, his large hand resting protectively over the curve of my belly, his thumb rubbing rhythmic, soothing circles against the damp fabric of my hoodie. "Let me see your hands," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel grinding together, but the volume was low, forced calm. I hesitated, feeling foolish. "It's nothing, Alex. Just a scratch." "Caleb." It wasn't a request. It was a command, softened only by the look in his eyes. I slowly lifted my hands. The streetlights flashing past the tinted windows illuminated the damage. My palms were raw, the skin abraded and red, with tiny beads of blood welling up where the concrete had bitten deep. Dirt was embedded in the scrapes. They stung, a sharp, throbbing reminder of my fall. Alex hissed in a breath, a sound of pure pain. He looked at my hands as if they were a personal failure of his own making. He reached into the compartment beside him, pulling out a first aid kit and a bottle of water. "This is going to sting," he murmured. He poured water over a clean cloth and began to gently dab at the dirt. I winced, my breath hitching. I know," he whispered, blowing softly on the wounds. "I've got you. I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing?" I asked, my voice cracking. "I'm the one who went out. I'm the one who tripped. I embarrassed you." Alex's hand froze. He looked up, his gray eyes dark as a storm cloud, locking onto mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. "Embarrassed me," he repeated, his tone incredulous. "Yes," I whispered, looking down at my knees. "The manager, she was right. I don't look like I belong in your world. I look like a scholarship student in sweatpants. If people knew I was your husband, if the press saw me on the ground like that, it would ruin your image. The powerful Alexander Blackwood Wolf, married to a clumsy, pregnant nobody." The air in the car shifted instantly. The temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Alex tossed the cloth aside and grabbed my chin, forcing me to look at him. His grip was firm, possessive. "Listen to me very closely, Caleb," he said, his voice dropping into that deep, vibrating register that resonated in my bones. "You are not a nobody. You are my mate. You are the carrier of my heir. You are the only person in this entire godforsaken city who matters to me." He leaned in closer, his nose brushing against my jaw, inhaling deeply. My scent, honeyed milk and warm vanilla, had soured with fear and humiliation. He frowned, hating it, hating that he could smell my anxiety. "My image," he scoffed. "Do you think I care about what a room full of sycophants and social climbers think? I built an empire with my bare hands so that I could give you everything. If the world doesn't think you're good enough, then I will burn the world down and build a new one that worships the ground you walk on." "But she said, she is a gnat," Alex growled. "A pest. I have already crushed her. Do not let her poison into your head." He kissed my forehead, then my nose, then my lips, a chaste, lingering kiss that tasted like a promise. "The only mistake I made was keeping you hidden," he said, pulling back. His eyes hardened with new resolve. "I thought I was protecting you from the vultures. I thought if no one knew who you were, you would be safe." He paused, his jaw tightening. "I was wrong. My silence didn't protect you. It made you a target. It made people think you were weak, defenseless." He went back to cleaning my hands, but his movements were more decisive now. "That ends tonight." "What do you mean?" I asked, a flutter of nervousness in my chest. "I mean," he said, bandaging my palm with expert precision, "that I am done hiding. I am done playing the bachelor CEO. Tomorrow night is the Wolf Industries charity gala. It's the biggest event of the season. Every camera, every journalist, every rival I have will be there." He finished the bandage and kissed my palm. "And you will be there, by my side, as my husband, as Mr. Blackwood Wolf." My eyes widened. "Alex, no, I can't. I'm huge. I don't fit into any suits. I'll look like a whale next to all those models and movie stars." "You will look beautiful," he stated simply. "And anyone who says otherwise will answer to me." The car slowed to a halt. We'd arrived at the penthouse. The private elevator opened directly into our foyer, and as soon as we stepped inside, the familiar scent of our home, lavender detergent, old books, sandalwood, and safety wrapped around me. But the night wasn't over. Alex carried me, literally swept me off my feet into a bridal carry, all the way to the master bathroom. He set me down on the edge of the oversized marble tub and started running the water. "Alex, I can bathe myself," I protested feebly, though my legs felt like jelly. "Allow me," he said. He knelt before me, untying my sneakers. He took them off, then peeled off my socks. He frowned at my ankles, which were slightly swollen. "You were on your feet too long." He stripped me of my wet clothes with a reverence that made me blush, even after 2 years of marriage. When I was naked, shivering slightly in the warm, steam-filled room, he paused. His eyes raked over me, my swollen belly, my heavy, tender breasts, the dark circles under my eyes. His scent shifted, still protective, still dominant, but underneath it a hunger. The low, simmering heat of an alpha who hadn't touched his omega in weeks, out of fear of hurting the baby. Caleb, he breathed, his voice rough. I reached out and touched his cheek. Later, I whispered, "After the baby, I promise." He closed his eyes, leaning into my touch. Then he helped me into the warm water, adding Epsom salts and essential oils that were safe for the baby. As I sank into the heat, groaning in relief, Alex rolled up his sleeves and grabbed a sponge. He washed my back, gentle but firm. The water turned the scrapes on my knees pink, but the pain was fading, replaced by the overwhelming comfort of being cared for by my alpha. I was craving mac and cheese, I admitted quietly into the steam. Alex paused, the sponge resting on my shoulder. "Is that why you went?" "Yes." "The lobster mac and cheese from Chez Lumiere. The baby really wanted it. And I didn't want to bother you at work." Alex chuckled, a low rumbling sound that I felt against my back. He kissed the nape of my neck, right over my bonding gland. A shiver raced down my spine. "Caleb, you could ask for the moon, and I would find a way to harvest it. Never think you are bothering me. Next time you call me, or you call the chef, I will hire that chef personally if I have to. You bought the building," I reminded him. "Isn't that enough?" "For now," he said darkly. "But Ms. Vance, she represents a rod in this city, a disrespect that I cannot tolerate." After the bath, Alex dried me off with a towel warmed on the heated rack, then dressed me in one of his softest T-shirts, a faded gray thing that hung to my knees and smelled overwhelmingly of him. He led me to the bedroom, where he'd already built a nest of pillows, blankets, and my favorite hoodies earlier that morning. It was an omega instinct to nest, but Alex, despite being an alpha, loved to help me build it. He knew it made me feel safe. He tucked me in, pulling the duvet up to my chin. "Sleep. The doctor will come in the morning to check the baby, just to be sure. But I can hear his heartbeat. It's strong. Stay with me," I asked, reaching for his hand. "Always." He climbed in beside me, wrapping his large frame around my smaller one, acting as a human shield against the nightmares. His hand found my belly, and he pressed his palm flat against the curve. Almost immediately, the baby kicked, a strong, insistent thump against his hand. Alex let out a shaky breath, pressing his forehead to my shoulder. "I thought I lost you today," he whispered. "When I tracked your phone and saw you were stopped at that restaurant for so long. When I pulled up and saw you on your knees in the rain." "Shoo," I soothed, running my fingers through his dark hair. "I'm here. We're both here." He tilted his head up, his gray eyes wet. "I need to scent you. Properly." I nodded, baring my neck. Alex leaned in, pressing his nose to my throat, right over my bonding gland. He inhaled deeply, a long, slow drag of air that pulled my scent into his lungs. Then he began to rub his cheek against mine, against my jaw, against my scent glands. He was remarking me, covering me in his pheromones, telling the world, and his own primal alpha brain, that I was safe, that I was claimed, that I was his. My omega preened. I went boneless in his arms, a soft, involuntary purr rising in my chest. Alex groaned in response, his arms tightening around me. "I love you," he murmured against my skin. "So much it terrifies me." "I love you too," I whispered back. I fell asleep to the sound of his breathing and the steady, reassuring beat of his heart against my back. The next morning, I woke up to the smell of lobster mac and cheese. I blinked open my eyes, confused. Sunlight was streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. The clock on the bedside table read 10 a.m. Alex was usually gone by 7 o'clock. I sat up, stretching carefully. My knees were stiff, and my palms throbbed a little, but otherwise I felt rested. Rested and hungry. The baby was doing somersaults in my belly, demanding breakfast. "Good morning, sleeping beauty." Alex walked into the room holding a tray. On it was a glass of freshly squeezed orange juice, a bowl of mixed berries, and a steaming plate of golden, creamy, incredible-smelling lobster mac and cheese. "Is that from Chez Lumiere?" Alex said, setting the tray down on the bed. He sat on the edge, looking smug. "Or rather, from the chef who used to work there. I hired him this morning. He's now part of our private kitchen staff." My jaw dropped. "You hired the chef? Just for mac and cheese? He makes excellent soufflés as well." Alex shrugged, picking up a spoon and offering me a bite. "Open." I took the bite. It was heaven. Creamy, earthy, rich, perfect. I moaned in appreciation. "Better?" he asked, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Much better." I mumbled around the pasta. "But Alex, you didn't have to hire him." "I take care of my own," he said, his expression turning serious. "Then eat up. We have a busy day. The Taylors are coming at noon." "Taylors?" "For the gala tonight," he reminded me, brushing a thumb over my lower lip to wipe away a smear of cheese sauce. "I had a suit designed for you overnight. It will accommodate the bump comfortably." My stomach did a flip that had nothing to do with a baby. "You're really serious about this?" "About tonight?" "Deadly serious," Alex said. He reached out and touched my cheek. "I spent the morning making calls. The rumors have already started. Someone posted a video of what happened yesterday. It's grainy, but people recognize me." I froze. "A video?" "Don't worry," Alex said quickly. "My team has already scrubbed the worst of the comments. But the cat is out of the bag. People know I defended a mystery pregnant man. If we don't control the narrative now, the tabloids will invent one. They'll call you a mistress, a sugar baby, a fling. I won't let them label you." He took my bandaged hand. "Tonight we walk in the front door. We take photos. And I introduce you as my husband. Once you are officially a Blackwood wolf in the public eye, no one, not a manager, not a critic, not a rival, will dare to touch you. The Blackwood wolf name is a shield, Caleb. Let me give it to you." I looked at him. I saw the love in his eyes, but also the strategic iron of his will. He was right. Hiding had only made me vulnerable. It was time to step into the light, even if the light was terrifying. "Okay," I whispered. "Let's do it." 8 p.m. The grand ballroom, the Ritz-Carlton. The flashbulbs were blinding. That was my first thought as the limousine door opened. A wall of white light, a strobe effect that made me dizzy. The noise was deafening, shouting photographers, the roar of a crowd, the click-click-click of shutters. "Mr. Blackwood Wolf. Over here. Who's the guest? Is that a baby bump?" I gripped Alex's arm so hard I thought I might rip his tuxedo jacket. I was wearing a midnight blue velvet suit, tailored perfectly to hug my shoulders and drape elegantly over my swollen stomach. It was comfortable, chic, and screamed money. My hair had been styled. My skin glowed from the spa treatment Alex had insisted on, but I still felt like the boy in sneakers who'd fallen in the mud. "Breathe," Alex whispered in my ear. He stepped out first, buttoning his jacket. Then he turned back, extending his hand to me. "Eyes on me, Caleb. Just look at me." I took his hand. He pulled me out of the car and immediately tucked my hand into the crook of his arm. He stood tall, projecting an aura of absolute dominance. His alpha pheromones rolled off him in controlled waves, potent, warning every other alpha in the vicinity to back off. We walked the red carpet. Alex didn't stop for interviews. He didn't smile for the cameras. He walked with singular purpose, guiding me through the gauntlet. Every time a reporter shouted a rude question, "Who's the boy toy, Blackwood Wolf?" Alex's gaze would snap to them, cold and silencing, before moving on. We reached the entrance of the ballroom. The noise of the outside faded, replaced by the murmur of hundreds of wealthy, influential people. Waiters circulated with champagne. A string quartet played Vivaldi in the corner. As we stepped inside, the room went quiet. It was the same silence as the restaurant, but on a massive scale. 500 heads turned. I felt naked, exposed. Chin up, Alex murmured. You own this room. He led me toward the center, where the host of the gala, the mayor of the city, was standing. But before we could get there, a voice cut through the murmurs. Well, well, Alexander Blackwood Wolf, and bringing a pet to a formal event. How bold. We stopped. Standing in our path was Damien Thorne. If Alex was the king of the business world, Damien Thorne was the pretender to the throne, a rival CEO, an aggressive alpha with a reputation for dirty dealings and cheap cologne. He'd been trying to buy out Alex's shipping division for years. Damien smirked, his eyes raking over me with open lasciviousness. He's a pretty one, I'll give you that. A bit ripe, though, isn't he? Didn't know you were into second-hand goods. The insult was gross, implying the baby wasn't Alex's. I felt Alex's muscles turn to granite under my hand. The air around us crackled. The string quartet seemed to falter. Alex slowly released my arm and took a step toward Damien. He smiled. It was the most terrifying smile I had ever seen. It didn't reach his eyes. His eyes were dead. Damien, Alex said, his voice smooth as silk but sharp as a razor. I'm glad you're here. I was actually meaning to speak to you. Oh. Damien chuckled, swirling his drink. About the shipping deal? No, Alex said. He reached out and straightened Damien's lapel, a gesture that looked friendly but was actually a display of dominance. I wanted to introduce you to someone. Alex gestured to me. This is Caleb Blackwood Wolf. My husband. Damien froze. The smirk fell off his face. Husband? Yes, Alex continued, his voice raising slightly so the surrounding crowd could hear. And the father of the child he is carrying. My child. The gasp that went through the room was audible. Alex leaned in closer to Damien, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that only Damien and I could hear. If you ever refer to my husband as goods or pet again, I won't just buy your company, Damien. I will dismantle it, piece by piece, and I will make sure the IRS receives that file regarding your offshore accounts in the Caymans. Do we understand each other? Damien turned pale. He swallowed hard, looking from Alex to me. The aggression leaked out of him, replaced by fear. My apologies, Damien stammered. I didn't know. Congratulations, Mr. Blackwood Wolf. To both of you. Run along now. Alex dismissed him like a servant. Damien hurried away. Alex turned back to me, the monster receding, the loving husband returning. He winked. See? Just gnats. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. A small smile touched my lips. He really would burn the world down. But just as I was starting to relax, just as I thought the night might actually be okay, a flash of movement caught my eye. Near the service entrance of the ballroom, a figure was standing there watching us. Not a guest. A woman in a staff uniform. It was Ms. Vance. She wasn't dressed in her manager's suit. She was wearing a server's uniform, a white jacket, black pants, looking haggard and angry. But her eyes were locked on me with a hatred so pure it made my blood run cold. She held a tray of champagne glasses, her knuckles white. Alex didn't see her. He was greeting the mayor, laughing at some joke. I watched as Ms. Vance started to move through the crowd. Not away from us. Toward us. She wasn't looking at the floor. She wasn't doing her job. She was moving with a manic focus, her hands slipping into the pocket of her apron. Something silver glinted in her hand. A steak knife. My heart hammered against my ribs. Alex, I whispered, squeezing his hand. One moment, darling, Alex said, distracted. Ms. Vance was 20 feet away. 15. 10. She wasn't holding a wine opener. It was a knife. Serrated. Sharp. Deadly. Panic exploded in my brain. I didn't think. I couldn't scream. The instinct to protect my mate, to protect my alpha, to protect the father of my child, took over. Alex. I threw my weight against him, shoving his massive frame to the right. Just as Ms. Vance lunged out of the crowd, the knife raised in a deadly arc aimed at Alex's kidney. The ballroom erupted into chaos. I didn't see the blade connect. I only felt the impact, a jarring, brutal collision as Ms. Vance's momentum carried her into me. We crashed to the floor. My hip hit the polished marble with a sickening thud. I curled instinctively, wrapping my arms around my belly, squeezing my eyes shut as I waited for the bite of steel. "You ruined everything," Ms. Vance shrieked, her voice cracking with hysteria. She was on top of me, grappling, the knife raised again. "You filthy little rat. You took my job. You took my life." I stared up at the blade, paralyzed. The smell of her, stale sweat, cheap alcohol, rotting bitterness, was suffocating. But before she could bring the knife down, a dark blur collided with her. It wasn't a person. It was a force of nature. Alex roared. It was a sound that didn't belong in a civilized ballroom. It was the roar of a lion seeing its cub threatened. He didn't just pull her off me. He ripped her away. He grabbed her by the back of her uniform and flung her backward as if she weighed nothing. Ms. Vance flew through the air, crashing into a table of champagne flutes. Glass shattered explosively, a symphony of destruction that silenced the entire room. She tried to scramble up, still clutching the knife, blood dripping from her forehead. But she never got the chance. Alex was on her. He didn't hit her. He stepped on her wrist, the one holding the knife. Crack. The sound of bones snapping echoed through the silent hall. Ms. Vance screamed, dropping the weapon as her hand went limp. Alex kicked the knife away, sending it skittering across the floor. He stood over her, chest heaving, hands balled into fists, so tight his knuckles were white. The aura radiating from him was suffocating. Omegas in the room whimpered and hid behind their alphas. Even other alphas stepped back, their instincts warning them that a predator of a higher order was on the hunt. "You dared," Alex hissed, his voice trembling with a rage so profound it sounded almost calm. "You dared to touch him." He, Ms. Vance sobbed, clutching her broken wrist, cowering on the floor amidst broken glass and spilled champagne. "Alex." I tried to sit up, but a sharp, blinding pain shot through my lower abdomen. It wasn't my hip. It was deeper. I gasped, clutching my stomach. "Alex." The sound of my voice snapped him out of his bloodlust. He turned instantly, his eyes wild, searching for me. When he saw me on the floor, his face drained of all color. "Caleb." He was beside me in an instant, dropping to his knees, ignoring the expensive tuxedo trousers staining with spilled wine. His hands hovered over me, terrified to touch, terrified not to. "Where are you hurt? Did she cut you? Tell me." "No cut," I wheezed, squeezing his hand. "But my stomach." "It hurts, Alex. It hurts." Alex looked down. His eyes widened. There was no blood on my velvet suit, but the look of agony on my face was enough to stop his heart. "Security," Alex bellowed. The command shook the walls. "Clear the exit." Now. He didn't wait for a stretcher. He didn't wait for paramedics. He scooped me up into his arms, holding me tight against his chest. I buried my face in his neck, inhaling the scent of cedar and smoke, trying to ground myself against the waves of cramping pain. "Stay with me, Caleb," he commanded, running toward the exit. "Focus on my voice. Just listen to my voice." The crowd parted like the Red Sea. No one dared to speak. No one dared to take a picture. The sight of Alexander Blackwood Wolf, the most powerful alpha in the city, carrying his pregnant husband, his face a mask of terrified determination, was too raw, too intimate. As we passed the security team who had finally pinned the sobbing Ms. Vance to the ground, Alex didn't even look at her. But he threw a command over his shoulder to his head of security. "Don't let the police have her yet," Alex snarled. "Keep her. I want to have a conversation with her. Once my husband is safe." The menace in those words made the security guard shiver. The limousine ride was a blur of speed and lights. I was lying across the back seat, my head in Alex's lap. He was barking orders into his phone, mobilizing the best obstetricians in the city, demanding they be ready at St. Jude Hospital, the wing our family foundation funded. "Hold on, baby," he whispered, stroking my hair with a trembling hand. "We're almost there. Just breathe." "The baby," I whispered, tears leaking from my eyes. "I fell hard, Alex. If I lose him because of some stupid mac and cheese." "Stop it," he said fiercely. "This is not about mac and cheese. This is about a deranged woman. This is not your fault. And we are not losing him. Do you hear me? You are a Blackwood wolf. You are strong. He is strong." But I could feel his fear, leaking through the bond, a cold, oily dread that coated my insides. Alexander Blackwood Wolf could buy buildings, destroy companies, and break bones. But he couldn't fight biology. He couldn't fight fate. And that powerlessness was tearing him apart. The car screeched to a halt at the emergency entrance. A team of doctors and nurses was already waiting, a gurney prepped. The doors flew open. Alex carried me out and placed me gently onto the sheets. "Abdominal trauma, approximately 32 weeks gestation," Alex barked, the medical details he'd memorized. "Severe cramping, possible placental abruption." "We've got him, Mr. Blackwood Wolf," a senior doctor said, shining a light in my eyes. "Let's move." They started running, pushing the gurney down the sterile white corridor. Alex ran alongside, holding my hand, until we reached the double doors of the surgical wing. "Sir, you can't come in yet," a nurse said firmly, blocking his path. "We need a sterile environment." "That is my husband," Alex roared, trying to push past her. "Alex," I called out, my voice weak. The pain was getting worse, a tightening band around my middle. "Let them work. Please, just let them save him." Alex froze. He looked at me, his red-rimmed eyes, his heaving chest. He looked like a man watching his soul being wheeled away. He nodded, a jerky, broken motion. He squeezed my hand one last time, then let go. "I'll be right here," he promised. "Right outside this door. I'm not going anywhere." The doors swung shut, cutting off the sight of him. The last thing I saw was Alexander Blackwood Wolf, the billionaire alpha, collapsing onto a plastic waiting room chair, burying his face in his hands. Darkness. Then light. Then the rhythmic beeping of a machine. I floated in a haze for a while. I felt heavy tired, but the sharp stabbing pain was gone, replaced by a dull ache. I blinked my eyes open. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of medical equipment. I was in a private suite, more like a hotel room than a hospital. I tried to move, and immediately a warm hand covered mine. "Don't," a rough voice whispered. "Don't move." I turned my head. Alex was sitting in a chair next to the bed. He looked wrecked. His tuxedo jacket was gone, his white dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar, sleeves rolled up. His hair was a mess, as if he'd been running his fingers through it for hours. And his eyes, usually so piercing and clear, were bloodshot and shadowed with exhaustion. "Alex," I croaked. My throat was dry. He immediately poured a glass of water with a straw and held it to my lips. I drank greedily. "The baby?" I asked, the memory of the night rushing back. "Is he?" Alex let out a long, shuddering breath. He leaned his forehead against our joined hands. "He's fine," Alex whispered. The relief in his voice was so thick it nearly broke me. "He's fine, Caleb. You're both fine." I sagged against the pillows, tears of relief springing to my eyes. "Really? Really?" Alex confirmed, lifting his head to look at me. "It wasn't a rupture. It was severe shock and bruising. The fall triggered contractions, but they managed to stop them. He's stressed. His heart rate was high, but he's settling down now. They want to keep you for observation for 48 hours, but the danger has passed." He reached out and gently rested his hand on my stomach. As if in response, a small, tentative kick pushed against his palm. Alex closed his eyes, a single tear escaping and tracking down his cheek. He didn't wipe it away. I thought I lost you, he confessed, his voice barely audible. When she lunged, when you pushed me. He opened his eyes, and suddenly the anger was back, not at me, but at the situation. Why did you do that? He demanded, his grip on my hand tightening. Why did you push me? You should have run. You should have protected yourself. I was protecting you, I said simply. I am the alpha, he argued, his voice rising slightly. I am supposed to protect you. That is my job, Caleb. I am the shield. You are the heart. If the shield breaks, it can be replaced. If the heart stops, the body dies. Do you understand? I cannot exist without you. And I can't exist without you, I countered, reaching up to touch his stubbled cheek. You think I could just stand there and watch you get stabbed? You think I could raise this baby alone? I would rather take 1,000 knives than watch you fall again, he said intensely. He kissed my palm, his lips pressing hard against the skin. I failed you tonight. I let my guard down. I let a threat get too close. You didn't fail, I soothed him. You caught her. You saved us. She will never touch anyone again, Alex said darkly, the temperature in the room dropping. I made a few calls while you were sleeping. I hesitated. Alex, what did you do? She's in police custody, he said, his face closing off. She's being charged with 2 counts of attempted murder. My lawyers are ensuring that bail is denied. She will spend the rest of her miserable life in a cell. That's good, I whispered. And Alex continued, I realized that my approach was flawed. I thought hiding you kept you safe. Then I thought showing you off would keep you safe. But the truth is, the world is too unpredictable. He stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights below. I'm hiring a permanent security detail for you, he said. 4 guards. Round the clock. Ex-military. They will shadow you everywhere, even to the bathroom, if they have to stand outside the door. Alex, that's too much. It is not enough, he spun around, his eyes blazing. You almost died tonight, Caleb. Because of a disgruntled employee. What happens when my actual enemies find out you are my weakness? Damien Thorne saw you. The whole city saw you. You are now the biggest target in the country. He walked back to the bed, looming over me. I will not take risks. Not anymore. You might hate me for it. You might feel suffocated. But you will be alive. And our son will be alive. I looked at him, this powerful, terrified man. I saw the love beneath the control. He wasn't trying to control me. He was trying to control a chaotic universe that kept trying to take me away from him. I won't hate you, I said softly. I know you're scared. I'm scared too. I shimmied over in the narrow hospital bed, patting the empty space beside me. Come here. Caleb, I'll hurt you. The bed is too small. I don't care. Come here. He sighed, defeated. He kicked off his shoes and carefully, ever so carefully, climbed into the bed. He wrapped his arm around me, avoiding my stomach, and buried his face in my neck, inhaling deeply, sending me, reassuring himself. We lay there in silence for a long time. The press is outside, Alex murmured into my skin. I assumed so. They're calling you a hero, he said. The headlines, Billionaire's husband saves life of CEO, the Omega who fought back. I snorted weakly. I didn't fight back. I just fell over. You threw yourself in front of a blade, Alex corrected. They're calling it the romance of the century. He paused. But there are other rumors, too. Questions about your background. People digging into your past. Where you went to school. Who your parents were. I stiffened. My past wasn't exciting, but it was private. I didn't want the world dissecting my scholarship applications or my parents' debts. Let them dig, Alex said fiercely. They will find nothing but what I want them to find. I've scrubbed everything that could be used against you. As far as the world is concerned, you were born the day you met me. He pulled back to look at me. But we need to control the narrative one last time. When we leave this hospital, we have to make a statement. Final one. To Damien, to the press, to everyone. What kind of statement? We're going to get married, he said. I blinked. We are married. We signed papers in a courthouse basement. Alex dismissed that with a wave. No, I mean a wedding. A real one. A massive, public, undeniable wedding. I want to renew our vows in front of the entire world. I want to put a crown on your head so heavy that no one will ever dare to question your place again. A wedding? I asked, looking at my bump. Before the baby comes? As soon as you're cleared, Alex nodded. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks? That's impossible to plan. I'm Alexander Blackwood Wolf, he said with a rare, genuine smirk returning to his face. Impossible is just a budget issue. He kissed me, deep and possessive. Rest now, my brave lion, he whispered. Because when you wake up, we're going to war with the tabloids. And we're going to win. 2 weeks later. The Glass Cathedral. The wedding was, as Alex had promised, the event of the century. He hadn't rented a ballroom. He'd rented the Botanical Gardens, specifically the massive Victorian glasshouse that sat on the cliffs overlooking the ocean. It was winter, so the gardens outside were covered in snow, a stark white blanket. But inside the glass dome, it was a tropical paradise. Thousands of white orchids had been flown in from Singapore. Crystal chandeliers hung from the iron rafters, catching the winter sun and scattering rainbows everywhere. 500 guests sat on white velvet chairs. The mayor, the governor, tech moguls, movie stars, and yes, even Damien Thorne, sitting in the third row, looking humble and terrified. Exactly as Alex had promised. When the music started, a live orchestra playing a hauntingly beautiful version of Can't Help Falling in Love, the heavy oak doors opened. I walked down the aisle alone. Usually, an Omega is given away by their father. But my parents were gone, passed away years ago, and Alex had offered to walk with me. But I'd refused. I walked into that restaurant alone. I told him, I walked out of it with you. I want to walk to you now, on my own 2 feet, to show them I'm not weak. A collective gasp went through the crowd as I stepped onto the white runner. I was wearing an ivory silk coat embroidered with silver threads that looked like frost patterns on a window. It was structured to frame my shoulders but flowed loosely over my stomach, accentuating the bump rather than hiding it. I looked like a prince from a winter fairy tale. I held my head high, one hand resting protectively on my bump. I saw the cameras flashing, but I didn't look at them. I didn't look at the celebrities. I looked at the end of the aisle. Alex stood there. He was wearing a black velvet tuxedo that absorbed the light, contrasting perfectly with my white one. He stood tall, powerful, an alpha at the peak of his strength. But as our eyes met, I saw his composure crack. He looked at me with such raw, unadulterated worship that I felt tears prick my eyes. He didn't care about the cameras. He didn't care about the guests. He only saw me. When I reached the altar, Alex stepped down to meet me. He didn't wait for me to climb the steps. He took my hand and helped me up, treating me like I was made of spun glass. The officiant began the ceremony, speaking about love, duty, and the sacred bond between Alpha and Omega. But the world faded away. Then it was time for the vows. Alex took both my hands. He didn't use a microphone, but his voice carried to the back of the glass dome, clear and steady. Caleb, he began. Before I met you, I was a ghost. I had money, power, influence, but I was hollow. I built walls to keep the world out, thinking strength meant solitude. He paused, his thumbs stroking my knuckles. Then you walked into my life. You with your messy hair, your stubborn pride, and your heart that is too big for this cruel world. You didn't care about my money. You cared that I ate lunch. You cared that I slept. A ripple of laughter went through the crowd. I smiled through my tears. 2 weeks ago, Alex continued, his voice thickening with emotion, I almost lost you. And in that moment, I realized that if you were gone, I would cease to exist. You are not just my husband. You are my compass. You are my breath. He looked at my stomach, then back at my eyes. I vow to protect you against all threats, foreign and domestic. I vow to destroy anyone who tries to dim your light. I vow to honor you, to serve you, and to love you until the stars burn out and the universe goes dark. You are my alpha, my omega, my everything. I was crying openly now. I sniffled, trying to find my voice. Alex, I choked out. I didn't write anything that good. The crowd laughed again, a warm sound this time. I don't need poetry, Alex whispered. Just you. I vow, I said, squeezing his hands, to be your home. When the world is loud, I will be your quiet. When you are tired of fighting, I will be your rest. I vow to love you, not for what you have, but for who you are. The man who rubs my feet. The man who eats cold mac and cheese with me at 2 a.m. The man who saved my life. I love you, Alex. The officiant spoke, his own voice sounding a bit watery. I pronounce you partners for life. You may seal the bond. Alex didn't hesitate. He pulled me in, dipped me slightly, and kissed me. It wasn't a polite wedding kiss. It was passionate, claiming, a kiss that lasted a few seconds too long for polite society, but just long enough for us. The crowd erupted into applause as we turned to face them. Alex kept his arm around me, his pheromones flaring, proud, possessive, triumphant. He looked at the cameras, his expression shifting from lover to protector. Ladies and gentlemen, he announced, his voice booming. My husband. Caleb Blackwood Wolf. It was a warning, a declaration. He is a Blackwood Wolf. Touch him and die. And as I looked out at the sea of applauding people, the same people who would have stared at me 2 weeks ago, I realized something. I wasn't the beggar who got lucky. I wasn't the victim. I was the partner of a king, and I had earned my crown. 3 months later, the screaming was louder than I expected. Alex, I hate you. You did this to me. I know, baby, I know. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm never letting you touch me again. Oh. The delivery room at St. Jude's was chaotic. The doctors were calm, but I was definitely not. Labor was intense. Breathe, push, scream, repeat. Caleb, breathe. Just like we practiced, Alex soothed, wiping sweat from my forehead with a cool cloth. He looked terrified. His hand was being crushed in my grip, his fingers turning purple. He didn't complain. One more push, Caleb. I can see the head, the doctor encouraged. I can't, I sobbed, falling back against the pillows. I'm too tired, Alex. I can't. Yes, you can, Alex said, his voice dropping into that alpha command tone, but filled with infinite tenderness. He leaned close to my ear. You are the strongest person I know. You stood up to the world for us. You can do this. Bring him home, Caleb. Bring our son home. Bring him home. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with Alex's scent, cedar, smoke, and safety. I focused on the love, the safety, the future we had built. I pushed with everything I had left. And then a cry. A high, thin, beautiful wail that cut through the air like a bell. It's a boy, the doctor announced, lifting a tiny, squirming bundle. I collapsed, gasping for air, laughing and crying at the same time. They cleaned him up quickly and placed him on my chest. He was tiny, red-faced, furious, and absolutely perfect. He had a tuft of dark hair, Alex's hair. Hi, I whispered, touching his tiny cheek. Hi there, little bean. Alex leaned over us. He looked at the baby. And the mighty Alexander Blackwood Wolf, the terror of Wall Street, the man who made senators tremble, burst into tears. He buried his face in the mattress next to my shoulder, his shoulders shaking. He's perfect, Alex choked out. He's us. He has your nose, I noted tiredly. He has your chin, Alex countered, kissing my temple. Thank you. Thank you, Caleb. Later that night, after the visitors had gone, after the nurses had checked the baby for the 10th time, after the world had gone quiet, I lay in the hospital bed with Alex curled around me, our son nestled in the crook of my arm. Alex, I said softly. The baby's hungry. Alex lifted his head, blinking sleepily. I'll call the nurse. We have formula. No, I said, a sudden fierce instinct surging through me. I want to try to nurse him. Omegas can, sometimes after the bond. Alex's eyes widened. He watched as I shifted the baby, Elias, we'd named him after my grandfather, to my chest. He rooted instinctively, his tiny mouth seeking. And when he latched on, we began to nurse. A wave of something primal washed over me. My milk had come in. The bond had triggered it, the deep biological connection between Alpha, Omega, and Pup. Alex stared, his scent flaring, wonder, awe, and a raw, possessive hunger that made me shiver. Caleb, he breathed. I know, I whispered, looking down at our son. Elias's tiny hand curled against my skin. I'm lactating. Alex reached out, his fingers trembling, and touched the side of my breast where Elias was nursing. His thumb brushed against my skin, and I gasped at the sensitivity. My body responded, not just to the baby, but to him, to my Alpha. My scent sweetened, flooded with milk and honey and need. Caleb, Alex growled, low in his throat. His eyes were dark. You smell incredible. Alpha, I whimpered, the words slipping out unbidden. My Omega was preening. My mate was here. My pup was safe. My body was doing exactly what it was designed to do. Alex leaned in and pressed his nose to my throat, inhaling deeply. Then his lips found my bonding gland, the scar where he'd marked me 2 years ago, and he licked it. A slow, possessive swipe of his tongue that sent a bolt of electricity straight to my core. Later, I managed my voice shaky. When I'm healed, I promise. Alex groaned, pulling back. His eyes were wild, but he nodded. He looked at Elias, still nursing contentedly, oblivious to the storm of alpha pheromones filling the room, and smiled. Later, he agreed. Right now, we have our son. He climbed back into the bed, wrapping himself around me from behind, his chest pressed to my back, his arms around both me and the baby. His hand rested on my stomach, still soft, still healing, and he pressed a kiss to my shoulder. I love you, he whispered. Both of you. So much it terrifies me. I leaned back against him, feeling his heartbeat against my spine, feeling our son's tiny mouth at my breast, feeling the warm, steady pulse of our bond. I love you too, I whispered back. 1 year later. The headline on the tablet screen read, Wolf Heir turns 1. Extravagant birthday at party raises millions for Omega Maternal Health. I swiped the screen off and set the tablet on the coffee table. I walked out onto the terrace of the penthouse. The sun was setting over the city, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. Down in the private garden we'd built on the roof, Alex was sitting on a picnic blanket. He was wearing a casual sweater and jeans, a sight the public rarely saw. Crawling all over him was Elias, our son. Elias was giggling, trying to shove a stuffed toy wolf into Alex's mouth. No, Elias, Daddy doesn't eat wolves, Alex was explaining patiently, laughing as the baby grabbed his nose. I leaned against the doorframe, watching them. My heart felt so full it might burst. It felt like a lifetime ago that I'd stood in the rain outside Chez Lemire, humiliated, alone, bleeding. Ms. Vance was in prison, serving a 15-year sentence. The restaurant had been turned into a shelter for at-risk Omega youth, funded entirely by the Blackwood Wolf Foundation. I visited it once a month to help out. And me? I wasn't just a trophy husband. I'd gone back to school, finishing my degree in art history. I was consulting on a project to design affordable, dignified maternity wear for Omegas, proving that you didn't need to be a billionaire to look and feel beautiful during pregnancy. My milk had dried up months ago, when Elias switched to solid food, but my body still remembered. Sometimes when Alex kissed my neck just right, I would leak a thin trickle of sweet milk that made him groan and press closer. My Omega was still sensitive, still responsive to his alpha in ways that surprised even me. My heats had returned too, stronger than before, flavored with the deep, primal satisfaction of having successfully carried a pup. My last heat had been intense. Alex had taken a week off work. We hadn't left the bedroom. The penthouse had smelled like sex, milk, and cedar for days. I blushed at the memory. Alex looked up and saw me watching. His face lit up. "Come join us," he called out. "Elias is winning the wrestling match." I walked over and sat down on the blanket. Elias immediately abandoned his father and crawled into my lap, babbling happily, his tiny hands patting my chest. "Da-da," he said. "Da-da-da." My heart melted. Again. For the 1,000th time. Alex wrapped his arm around my shoulders, pulling us both close. The city lights flickered on below us, a sea of stars. "Happy?" Alex asked, kissing the top of my head. I looked at my son, healthy, safe, perfect. I looked at my husband, who looked at me as if I hung the moon. "Craving something," Alex teased, remembering that fateful day. "Mac and cheese? Caviar?" I laughed. "Actually, I think I just want a grilled cheese sandwich." Alex chuckled. "I think the chef can manage that. Or I could make it. You." I raised an eyebrow. "You'll burn the kitchen down." "I'll have you know I've been practicing," he said with mock indignation. "We'll see," I said, leaning my head on his shoulder. I looked out at the city one last time. It was big. It was loud. It could be cruel. But up here, in our fortress, with my alpha and my pup, I knew one thing for certain. I was home, and no one would ever make me feel small again. Then,